name is Martin. I'm a partner at Red Associates in Europe. We are a consultancy that advises on strategic topic from a human science point of view. So basically, when you're about to make the bigger investments on products, services, engagement model, new growth areas, how do you make sure that they fit with the world around you and that you basically hit the right needs? And the way you can say the space that I work in is primarily in financial services. So anything that's about retail banking, private banking, insurance, retirement. And I absolutely love that field. I think it's one of the areas where there's the most opportunity to deliver new products and services that tap into the deeper needs people have, and that throughout the years we have seen really are not fulfilled. And I'm very passionate about uncovering those deeper needs and feed them back to the core of strategy so that many of our clients and the leaders out there can thrive better, and also the people they serve. One of the things that have struck me in the years where last, especially 5-10 years, work with executives around topics like advice, digital. It seems that there are so many ideas that the current model doesn't work. Sure, there were used to be just people advising. Now we know it's not efficient for us anymore. We need to get more out of people. Also, there are these great many new digital tools. What do we need to do about that? And also the need of saying we don't want to be left behind, but also we still see the people like the advisors. So how should we think about that? And I think couple that also with the very deep unmet needs we have seen that customers have across North America, Europe, and so on, that all the way points back to not so much a product issue, but an issue about advice, the issue of how do I know that somebody helps look out for my financial well-being and make sure that I'm in the right place? I thought that it could be interesting to hone in on an aspect of that, namely around investment, that seems to both be core for our retirement and also, of course, invest your own money, and say, not just from a commercial point of view, but also from an ethical point of view, what feels more ethically right? Is it better from an ethical point of view to, advise by human, like that somebody can translate complex finance into your world and guide you? With the flaws that it has about processing data and human biases and so on? Or is it really better that we really pick up the mantle and start to do that much more digitally and automated? Because then we can do it much more based on data, and we assume / hope that people will be able to make that translation if we give them the right interface for that. And I was actually really in doubt about what would come out of that question when I asked it. And I think that the answers point a little bit back to that split when we look into that. But I think that was the reasoning for why I wanted to pose that question, and kind of I guess also the debate I would hope to facilitate, because I do feel that there are a lot of assumptions being made in banks, for example, about what is right and wrong, that touches upon ethics and touches upon do we optimize for the money? Do we optimize for short run, long run? What is our responsibility when it comes to advice? How much do we react before regulators force us to do, and so on? And I thought it would be good and helpful to make that discussion more explicit, at least to raise more awareness about it. My initial sense, and I think I shared that also in this session, would be that I think that human and the automated there wouldn't be that big of a difference between those. But I thought maybe there would be slightly more on the automated side. And I think generally, I think they're pretty neck to neck if you look at the answers to it. I think they're about equal. I can't remember if it's 38%, but they're very, very close. And I think that would kind of be the two dominant responses I envisioned. I think, though, if I should start about what kind of also surprised me and maybe also stuck with me a little bit afterwards, it's actually not first and foremost those two. It's actually the fact that 18%, or very close to 1 out of 5, said it doesn't matter that much. And I think that sparks some reflection on my side, because I do think that there is an extremely clear difference from an ethical point of view in terms of what is right and wrong in terms of advising people, whether it's human or automated. And I think the fact that 18% say ethics doesn't matter too much, it's not an important parameter to discuss, to me, points to a deeper question, and maybe also a deeper concern or a deeper issue in financial services that maybe don't take the topic about ethics and also what is at stake for people seriously enough, if I should put it a little bit provocatively. And finally, as I think we've seen over the past year, even when it comes to things that are investing with your values or morale, sustainable finance, and so on, I think to me, it's very clear that investments is a field that has a lot of values and questions and uncertainties and also ethics tied to it. So to me, I guess the striking thing is not so much the bigger number, but maybe the smaller number of 1 out of 5 don't consider that to be an important problem. And I think that was slightly higher, I think, for people above 50, slightly lower before. So there's a little bit of difference there. But I think the first thing that I reckoned from the numbers was just to say, let's be sure to talk about it. I'm glad I raised the question, and make sure that we recognize that we're dealing with something that matters a lot for the people involved, and where our choice and approach for how we advise them has impact beyond the commercial sphere that we're dealing with. I think that was my initial bigger takeaway on the 18% that said it's not important. I think when it then comes to the human versus automated investment, I thought a little bit about that also afterwards, and thought a little bit about how to interpret it. And I guess there are some pretty predictable things in the demographics, like leaning human, higher for people above 50, leaning automated, higher for people below 50, which I think you could maybe speculate on beforehand. But I think maybe the harder one here is, I think you could argue that we as people have a logical intuition that both could be correct. So if you take the human one, so like if you ask the question that's like, should people get more support in making right financial decisions, and even somebody who can help them translate technical financial language so that they can act on it, I think 90% would agree. But I think equally, if you talked about digital and automated, and you said, would it be better if more people got access to investment products? And would it be better if investment decisions were more often based on advice and evidence, rather than, let's say, a person's own proclivities? I would also imagine that could be around 90%. So I think that the tough one here is, you really can't do both at the same time as an executive, but there really is an intuitive argument for why both could be correct. And I think the bigger takeaway for me with this one is that I could argue that is kind of a moral vacuum for figuring out how should we think about the future advisory experience and how to help people make the right decisions when it comes to investments. I think it makes all the sense in the world to think that technology needs to support more when it comes to great advice for people, also in the investment space. So maybe instead of asking it the binary way, here's maybe the next way of thinking about it, which is, so for cost reasons, even also for good customer experience reasons, and also for quality of advice reasons, I think everything we've seen in the past years at Red have been that technology and digital support should play a bigger role in the advisory experience. Not often as a standalone, but as a great support for the human advice you can put on top of it. And for the platforms that are, let's say, digital only, also have thought through the advice in that platform. And I think here we're into then an interesting field of saying, how do we avoid some of the risk and the issues that we can observe today? So when it comes to mortgage approval, we all know about the stories about how algorithms that have been trained on existing data lead to outputs that actually lead to racial discrimination, because it was built with initial data in mind and taken for granted. I think that's an issue we certainly want to avoid. But also, I think more important recently, if you take the whole discussion around GameStop and Robinhood, a company that has often been called the Facebook of finance, I think we enter also a field where we need to think about what is the responsibility of platform providers and automated services in terms of advising people well. So not whether or not one is better, but how do we do it well? And I think if you take the issue of Robinhood and GameStop, I think there are several people who could argue that it's an intransparent business model. It's unclear how the money is being made. It's a design for a UX that might be tick the boxes of gamified, nice experience and so on, but maybe also one that encourages trading and certainly does not have a point of view or help necessarily people to make the right decisions. And I think these are questions that not just Robinhood, not platforms providers as such, but also banks, even regulators, should consider more. So I would say, given that we will be moving towards an advisory model where there will be more digital, where components will be more automated, how do we make that more human? So as we take out more humans from the advisory experience, how do we make the advisory experience more human and more helpful in its nature?